Hello everyone, today we're going to learn the concept of friction. Friction is a word you've heard many times before, so let's quickly recap what friction means through everyday examples. The first one is to understand that if I kick a ball, then it's not going to roll indefinitely but comes to a stop eventually. Another example would be that if I stop pedaling a bicycle, it will come to a stop eventually. Another thing to think about is why is it so difficult to slide two glass slabs across each other. Now, what do all these things have in common? All these examples have in common the concept of friction. So let's quickly write down what is the formal definition of friction. By definition, friction is the opposing force that is set up between the surfaces of contact when one body slides or rolls or tends to move on the surface of another body. The most important part about this definition is that friction is an opposing force. Opposing means that it is moving against something. And what exactly is it opposing? Well, friction opposes motion. And that means, therefore, I can call friction as an opposing or a retarding force. But of course, strictly speaking, friction doesn't always oppose motion. For example, it would be impossible to walk if we had no friction. So in that sense, friction is aiding motion. But in the crudest and the loosest terms, when we talk about friction, we say it opposes motion because it helps us remember what would be the direction of friction in a certain situation. So let me loosely say that friction opposes motion. Now that I have seen that friction opposes motion, the next question to ask is what is the cause of friction? Well, friction is caused by strong atomic or molecular forces of attraction between the two surfaces of contact. Now, if you look at the surface of contact at a molecular level, you will see that the surface is not plane, but there are some aberrations. And at each of these irregularities, you have forces of attraction that make it harder for you to slide one surface over the other. Now, what happens at these irregularities is that there is an interlocking of these irregularities, and because of this interlocking, you cannot slide one surface over the other, and this exactly is the cause of friction. Once we've seen what is the cause of friction, we then ask the question, what are the types of friction? To answer that question, we look at the definition. We say that, look, friction exists when one body tends to move on the surface of another body. And when it tends to move, I call it static friction. Now remember, I have written that static friction comes into play when the body tends to move. I'm not saying it moves, I'm saying it tends to move. That is, it is at the edge of movement, and in such a situation, I'm talking about static friction. But friction also comes into play when one body slides over another body, and then I call it sliding friction. And also when one body is rolling over another body, and then I call it rolling friction. Actually, sliding friction and rolling friction are both types of kinetic friction. So broadly speaking, we have only two categories of friction, that is static and kinetic, and under kinetic friction we have sliding friction and rolling friction. So now let's quickly look at each of these categories of friction. The first one is static friction. By definition, static friction is the force of friction that comes into play between the surfaces of two bodies before the body actually starts moving. Pay very close attention. Static friction comes into play before the body actually starts moving. So if I look at an example, in this case I have a man who's trying to push a rock. Now this force applied by this man is in this direction, but remember, friction is an opposing force, and therefore static friction will be directed in the opposite direction, as you can see in this picture. But the most important thing to remember is that static friction does not exist by itself. Now what does that mean? When there is no applied force, there is no static friction. What does this mean? If this man was not pushing this rock, would there still be static friction acting to the left? Of course not. You can't have a friction of reaction unless you are actually applying any force. And therefore I say that static friction doesn't exist by itself. It is a reaction force. So remember, static friction is only existing when you have an applied force. So this was about static friction. Let's look at some other examples. In this example, you are trying to balance yourself between two walls. Again, this is an example of static friction because you know in this case that your weight is trying to pull you down and you have a tendency of motion in the downward direction. And we know static friction is an opposing force, and therefore what keeps you stationary is the fact that static friction is acting between you and the surface of contact, that is the wall, and it's acting in the upward direction to equally compensate for your weight acting in the downward direction, and this helps you be stationary. So this is also an example of static friction. Perhaps the most interesting example of static friction that I can think of is the example of a rotor. Now there is an amusement park ride known as the rotor or the gravitron, and it's nothing but this huge cylinder. Now what happens is that you get on in this huge cylinder, you lean against a wall, and then the cylinder starts to spin. When the cylinder starts to spin sufficiently quickly, then the flow drops away. And when I say the flow drops away, it means your legs no longer touch the ground. But somehow you don't fall down because you are pinned to the wall by some mysterious force. But of course, by now you should know that this is not a mystery. The force I'm talking about is of course the force of friction. So what exactly is happening and how does it work? So let's look at the free body diagram of this person right here. So as usual, we construct a free body diagram. And if I do that, then the first thing I see that since the interface is vertical and I know normal reaction is perpendicular, I can see that the normal reaction is acting in this direction because I have to have a 90-degree angle between the surface and the normal reaction. So you know that normal reaction is acting in this direction. Okay. Now once I see that, what's the next force acting on the body? Of course we have the static friction which is acting in the upward direction. And what exactly is it compensating? Of course it's compensating for the weight of the person which is acting in the downward direction. So static friction is acting in the upward direction, compensating for your weight and keeping you pinned to the wall, and because of this you do not fall down. So in this case, we say that the static friction must be pointing upwards because it must balance the gravitational force which must be pointing downwards. So this is an example again of static friction and how you don't fall down in this amazing amusement park ride. We move on to the formula for static friction, and if I write down the formula, then it is Fs is equal to mu s into n, where Fs is nothing but the static frictional force, n is the normal reaction, and mu s is the coefficient of static friction. Now what exactly is the coefficient of static friction? Actually it is nothing but the constant of proportionality between Fs and n, which is basically telling us that these two are directly proportional to each other, and therefore mu s is just the constant of proportionality. But if I want to of course formally define mu s, I can ask the question, what exactly is the definition of the coefficient of static friction? Now to find the definition, I'm going to take this mu s and I'm going to keep it on one side, and then I can rearrange this formula to give me Fs on the numerator and take this n and put it in the denominator, and therefore I get this formula for the coefficient of static friction, which is Fs upon n. So if I look at this formula, I can quickly define what is the coefficient of static friction. It is the ratio, as you can see, of the limiting force of static friction to the normal reaction between the two surfaces in contact. You can see this, that it is the ratio of the static frictional force and the normal reaction, and therefore this is the definition of the coefficient of static friction. It's important to remember that this coefficient depends only upon the surfaces in contact. But also look at the fact that I am talking about limiting force of static friction, which means I'm only going to consider the maximum value of the static frictional force. So the point is, whenever you're trying to find out what is the coefficient of static friction, or in general you're trying to use this formula, in this case you must use that value of the static friction which is its maximum value. We'll see what limiting friction means later, but for now remember, in this formula you are only looking at the maximum value of static friction. So this was the definition of the coefficient of static friction, and like I said before, you need to remember that the coefficient of static friction depends only on the surfaces in contact. It depends on the nature and the material that you are talking about, and finally it has no unit because it is a ratio of two similar quantities. The numerator is also a force, the denominator is also a force, and therefore there are no units to the coefficient of static friction. So this was all about static friction. Let's move on to kinetic friction. The first thing to remember about kinetic friction is that it comes into play when one body rolls or slides on top of the other. So in general, when a body is moving on top of the other, that's when kinetic friction comes into play. So let's write down the definition of kinetic friction. It is the force of friction that comes into play between two surfaces when one surface is in steady motion relative to the other surface, such type of friction is known as kinetic friction. One very important observation of kinetic friction is that it is always less than limiting friction, and we just saw that limiting friction is nothing but the maximum value of static friction. So what I'm trying to say is that kinetic friction will always be less than the maximum value of static friction. Remember this, we will use this later. Lastly, we already know that kinetic friction is of two types, that is sliding friction and rolling friction. So let's quickly look at what is sliding and rolling friction in detail. The first one is pretty simple. Sliding friction comes into play when one body slides over the other. So this is an example of a person skiing on a slope. So you will guess that sliding friction must be acting between the person and the slope, and it must act in a direction opposite to the tendency of motion. So this person is moving downward, sliding friction will act upward. By definition, then I can say that the opposing force that comes into play when one body is actually sliding over the surface of the other body is called sliding friction. Of course, then you can guess what would be rolling friction. It would happen when one body is rolling on top of the other body. It acts between the two surfaces and again opposes motion. By definition, I will say the opposing force that comes into play when one body is actually rolling over the surface of the other body is known as rolling friction. So this is pretty straightforward. Let's look at the formula for kinetic friction. As before, the formula looks almost the same, but instead of Fs, I have Fk because I'm talking about kinetic friction. Instead of μs, I have μk because I'm talking about kinetic friction. In this case also, this is the force of kinetic friction. This is the normal reaction, and now I'm going to call this the coefficient of kinetic friction. As before, I asked the question, what is the definition of the coefficient of kinetic friction? To do this, as before, I rearrange this formula, take μk to one side, bring Fk to my numerator, and I take the normal reaction and I put it in the denominator. So this gives me a formula for μk. Now from this formula, I can define what is μk. As before, it is the ratio of the limiting force of kinetic friction. Notice I am saying limiting again. So it is the ratio of the limiting force of kinetic friction to the normal reaction between the two surfaces, and again this is the definition of the coefficient of kinetic friction. The most important thing to remember, like I said before, is that kinetic friction is always less than the limiting value of static friction. So I have Fk less than Fs, and if this happens, then from the formula itself you can tell that if Fk is less than Fs, that is if kinetic frictional force is less than static frictional force, it must mean that the coefficient of kinetic friction is less than the coefficient of static friction. So remember, in general, kinetic friction is less than the maximum value of static friction, and the coefficient of kinetic friction is less than the coefficient of static friction. Let's now come to a very interesting example of friction, and that is of meteorite protection. A meteoroid is nothing but a small rock or an object that is drifting through space. A meteorite is known as a meteor, that is a shooting or a falling star when it penetrates into the Earth's atmosphere. So when a meteor hits the Earth, it's known as a meteorite. Now, let's think about what happens when this meteorite is hitting the Earth. Meteorites are very harmful and they can be dangerous depending upon the size and the location of impact on the Earth. However, it is very rare to think about the harm done by meteorites. So what exactly is happening? Why do we never hear about the harm done by meteorites? This is because the atmosphere provides protection to us by the meteorites. Most of these burn up due to friction, and therefore this is an example of how friction is not so bad because it protects us from the meteorites in the space. If you like this video, please subscribe.